Hey everybody, Bo Bryant, the restaurant consultant and coach to coaches, back with another installation of our 6P training series on the cornerstones of restaurant fundamentals. So these might be a little counterintuitive. They might sound a little bit different than some of the specific dynamic that you're hoping to get. Now, when it comes to forms and functionality, I capture all that type of stuff in my library, and the clients that I work with have access to that. So I don't get into a lot of the point-by-point functionality of the spreadsheets and the numbers and things like that can be trained and later assimilated. What I like to focus on is more the cerebral content of the business. And today, I'm excited to bring you my favorite topic. So I wrote a book a couple of years ago, a year ago, called Whisper Marketing. And the book is on restaurant marketing in particular, and the first part of the book captures the essence and the idea of your brand. And that's what I want to talk about today. In my best practices, one of the things that I think that's most important is making sure that we understand who we are, what we are, and why we're here for. In working with a client up in LA, he had an incredible sit-down, a mentor meeting with the CEO of Whole Foods. And when they first met, the CEO of Whole Foods asked him a very, very awesome question. And that question was, why should you exist? Now, I'll take that and give you a little clarity to it. Not why should you as a person exist, but why should your concept exist? Why should it occupy this space? And what makes it relevant? And what affords you the right to stay in this space or to change the landscape as you deserve to be here? So I typically bundle that question with kind of a two-part question. Why should you exist? And what's it going to take to get rid of you? So it's my whole exist and exit concept. I need to know why you should be here, but I also got to know where you're going when I work with you as a client, because if I don't understand where you're going or what your exit strategy is, then I don't necessarily know how to help you. I might try to help you the way that I would want to help myself if I were in your shoes. So I'll back that up really quick and just explain exit strategy. Exit strategy is what happens to the restaurant when you move on. Now, you could retire, you could die, you could, many things. You might be incapacitated and not be able to work. Whatever your exit strategy looks like, that's up to you. But I will give you a handful of things to consider. You might want to just stay exactly where your concept is right now, but you might want to capture it as a legacy. Leave it to your children or to somebody in your family. You may want to build it up to a certain height and then start franchising it. You may want to build it up to a certain height and profitability and then sell the entire concept so somebody else can go do whatever they would like to do with it. Well, that strategy is really critical, and you have to have that end in mind, right? Before you can go anywhere, you have to know where you're going. Otherwise, you're wasting time and you're wasting energy. So back it up a minute. Before we talk about where you're going, let's talk about why you're here. So who are you and why are you here? Why should you exist? I tend to ask people this question in a different way sometimes too. I have a concept called the Brad Pitt branding strategy. And you can insert any celebrity that you're starstruck by and put their name in the middle. Oftentimes I hear Scarlett Johansson but it doesn't sound as good as Brad Pitt branding. Either way, what you have to consider in your branding dynamic and in your brand dynamic is something called an elevator speech, an elevator pitch. And that is, how can you tag what you do uniquely and present it in 3 seconds? If somebody's interested, then you have the opportunity to maybe go a little deeper, and you've got 30 seconds. And then if they're super interested and it becomes dynamic conversation, then you've got about 3 minutes. So just about everybody I know does an incredible job of explaining their brand in 3 minutes. Not so much in 30 seconds, and definitely a big challenge to do in 3 seconds. So that's where this idea of what's called a USP or an ESP, an ASP, there's all kinds of different acronyms for it, but ultimately what it is your authentic or unique selling proposition. Why do you belong in this space? Why should you be here? What makes you different, better, special? So once you capture that as a concept and you can wrap your head around it, Then you have to look at your company as a whole and say, if this is what we are, then how do we make sure that that brand is synonymous with every single customer touch point that we have? Every customer interfacing activity, any exchange, whether that's your website, whether that's word of mouth, whether it's the stuff that shows up on Yelp, the stuff you post on Facebook, the things that people say about you. What is that environment like when I walk into the restaurant? From the very outside, right? What happens when I walk up and see it? What's the aesthetic look like outside? What's the transition look like when I walk in the door? What's my service level and my service experience like? How does my staff look? How does my food present? What does the menu look like? What's the aesthetics of the inside of the restaurant? Does all of that tie in specifically to that 3-second elevator pitch, that way that you would describe yourself? And if it doesn't, then I would ask you if you have a very sound grasp on your brand. If you don't, you might confuse people. Worst part about confusing people when it comes to your brand strategy is if you have no identity, then you kind of get lumped into this big pile of other people, and those are just the people selling food. And when you have no dynamic or remarkable way about you, you're relegated to the lowest common denominator. You just sling food, and I can get that anywhere, and that leads to a concept called fair market value, and I'm just going to shop on price because there's nothing special, better, or different about you. So what I'd like you to do is I would like you to figure out what is your brand essence? What is that 3-second pitch, right? Beyond that, beyond just thinking about it, I'd like you to write it down. What is that USP? What's that tagline that would fall under your restaurant name? So that if somebody said, well, what kind of restaurant are you? What makes you different? What do you guys specialize in? What do you do? You could say that, and you could say it real easy and real clear. Then, the next exercise is I want you to take and expand on that. And I want you to run it for 30 seconds and capture it. And then, of course, I want you to embellish even more. Not embellish, but expand even more. And I want you to capture that 3-minute version. What's the history, the story, the reason, the deep-rooted dynamic for why you're in this space, how it grabbed you your whole life, why you're here. Those 3 elements will become critical to your brand, which will then lead to branding. And branding is going to be our next video, and we'll talk a lot more about that. But wanted to leave you with that exercise. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I enjoy talking about it. This is really one of my favorite pieces. To follow is going to be branding itself. And after that, then we're going to move into some sweet marketing strategies, some stuff that I do. I'm going to give you a handful of sick ideas. In the meantime, you can obviously check out BoBryant.com. You can buy the book, Whisper Marketing, or you can watch a number of the other videos that are posted or soon to be posted, and keep sharpening your pencil. Remember, none of us get better unless all of us get better. That's the idea of this business model, and that's the idea behind being in this industry. So that's my unique tagline. I hope you do well, and I wish you the best of luck. Bo Bryant, see ya.